and gentlemen, this is the continuation of the previous seminar recording in which I was sitting, as I am sitting now, with 6 gentlemen who are asking me questions more or less at random on different aspects of the psychology of sex, man-woman relationships, marriage, and related subjects. So, let's continue with the next question.
Mr. Branden, why are we predominantly monogamous?
Well, to begin with, we are not predominantly monogamous. There hasn't been any culture known to me that has been predominantly monogamous in the sense the overwhelming majority of the inhabitants of the culture practiced monogamy. In certain of our cultures, such as the one in which we are now living, monogamy is a socially upheld ideal, but it's not what the majority of people practice. If you mean sexual monogamy, I assume you don't mean why does a man only have one wife. I'm interpreting your question to mean sexual monogamy, and it's a fact that in all cultures known to me, a significant number of people, even after marriage, have not had sex relations exclusively with their mate. Therefore, there is no grounds to speak about us as monogamous in the factual or statistical sense, but only in the sense of the ideal or the notion of what people would like to see happen. So perhaps what you are really asking is, why is monogamy generally regarded as an ideal state, and do I think it is an ideal state? Well, I think that monogamy historically was tied to the concept of sex being permissible exclusively within marriage. Sexual monogamy now. I think it was tied to the religious notion that only within marriage is sex permissible. And if that historical interpretation is true, then sexual monogamy as an ideal doesn't have a very good history. It doesn't come with very good credentials, because this religious notion that sex outside of marriage is sinful is certainly a fallacious one. However, if I stopped here, I could leave an implication that I don't intend, namely that there are no good reasons for sexual monogamy. And I think there are good reasons, though I'm not going to argue that they are conclusive. I think that when two people fall in love and are genuinely committed to each other, at least for the duration of that relationship, there are certain natural desires for sexual exclusiveness, which I don't believe are merely the product of irrational neurotic jealousy, as some psychologists believe. I think that part and parcel of the intense passion that we call romantic love, part and parcel of that kind of commitment and involvement, is a certain normal desire for exclusiveness that I don't see as neurotic. Such a couple feel, in effect, that they are like a private universe, in themselves and to each other, and they resent intruders. They want to feel that, at least in the department of sex, they are able to fulfill each other's needs and desires. And this is true even if subsequently the relationship may come apart, they may separate or divorce. And such a couple may in fact practice sexual monogamy for the duration of their relationship, even though factors may upset it somewhere along the line. But today, the issue of sexual monogamy is being rethought by many, many people. Think of a situation such as, imagine two people fall in love, marry, genuinely are committed to each other. But let's imagine they get married at the age of 30. Now, it's possible today to live to 80 or 90. When our notions of marriage and monogamy originated, people got married at 15 and died at 26 or 30, so till death do us part didn't mean very long. Today, People can get married at 25 and live together for 50 or 60 years. And so the question is increasingly asked, is it reasonable to imagine or to assume or to expect that in 50 or 60 years a person will never or should never have sex relations with anyone but his mate? Now, very few people today deny that it's normal to have sexual feelings or desires for others than your mate. It's recognized that you can be deeply in love with your mate and still have normal sexual appreciation toward particular members of the opposite sex whom one finds attractive, and there's no disloyalty in that. Certainly there's nothing unhealthy in it. The question hangs not upon the feeling but upon the act. And today there are many people, an increasing number of people, who are arguing that marriage should be open. There's a new book out called Open Marriage that I wrote about in a recent issue of the Academic Associates Book News. It's a very good book, and it raises this issue, and it doesn't advocate having other sexual relationships while being married, but it lays out reasons why couples could find this acceptable. It takes what I consider a judicious position on the subject, and one that I find very reasonable. I think that here we deal with the determination that couples must make on their own. I am not going to prescribe a formula binding on the whole human race. I think that here couples have to realize that there are no universally applicable rules of what to do. What you have to do, in my judgment, is know what you want, know that everything you do has consequences, and don't evade those consequences. If you do attempt to combine at some point an extramarital sexual relationship with the marriage, you're very unrealistic if you don't believe that this can be potentially to the relationship. It can take something away from the relationship. On the other hand, it can add something enormously to you emotionally under certain circumstances, and indirectly may add something to the relationship. That also happens. Therefore, at this point, I am not taking the position that people who are married should or should not attempt indefinite sexual monogamy. We can observe that the decreasing number of people are able to preserve sexual monogamy over a long period of time. And this certainly has some kind of psychological implications. I'm not prepared to dismiss all of that as merely neurosis or human depravity. People have needs, they have desires, and there is a problem here. There are plenty of reasons to desire exclusiveness. There are plenty of reasons to feel that one should be open and have the opportunity to enrich one's own experience and to reach out when one has an encounter with a person that has qualities that are meaningful to oneself. And there are people who believe, and I believe honestly, that relationships can be maintained or experienced without detriment to the marriage. I am not prepared to say they are necessarily wrong. That's an issue that I am working on right now in terms of thinking about it, because it's an issue I'll have to deal with in my book, and I'm trying to formulate my own view, and I am not speaking very definitely one way or the other right now, as I am fully aware, because I will want to lay out all the reasons pro and con that I can think of in my book. So perhaps I'll pause at this point and hope that I at least have given people something to think about. But I will want to add, before concluding, only the observation that people have to realize that there are not simple rules that will spare them the necessity of thought and judgment in the conduct of their life. When you get married, you may get married for a long time. All kinds of things can happen to you and to your partner. It's unrealistic to imagine that somebody will tell you, do this or do that. My advice is know what you want, attempt to make reasonable predictions of the consequences of your actions, don't kid yourself, and don't lie to your mate. After that, I like the old Spanish proverb which says, take what you want, quoth God, and pay for it. That's the very best advice I can give on this subject at this point.